Hello and welcome to NextOppSocial. We are your hosts, Richelle Wright, Juan Buford, and Nina Payne. We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and we are committed to the development and progress of entrepreneurs, providing you with the information you need to build thriving businesses. And today we are talking about risk and comfort zones, right? Specifically within entrepreneurship. Why is taking risk necessary? Why do we need to push ourselves out of our comfort zones? How do we assess risk, right? When we're making next level decisions, and also what happens when we choose to avoid it, right? And we try and just stay in that cozy spot a little bit.
Yeah.
So thoughts, let's share.
I think the first thing that comes, well, I have several things that come to my mind, but when we first started bringing up this topic, it reminded me of a conversation I had with my staff about, the definition of insanity. And, continue to do the same things over and over again. And you expect things to change, you expect to grow, and you expect to expand, you expect to learn, but you haven't stretched any muscles. You haven't stepped out and done anything differently. We can get really good and complacent in a space. Like we are rolling, we're rocking it, we're doing the thing, we're hitting our thing, we have process, and we kind of in this hamster spin the wheel thing. We can do that, but it won't allow us to grow. It won't allow us to expand. It won't allow us to make more money. It just won't allow us to do anything other than what we're doing. And then what happens is, while we're on that hamster wheel, life continues to change around us. Even though we're not changing, life continues to change around us. And next thing you know, you look up and there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
You look up and businesses around you have changed, or technology has changed, or, and you haven't kept up with the Joneses. And what will eventually happen is you will lose. And so risk as an entrepreneur, small business owner, is part of the process. It's part of it. And if you are not willing to make changes, step out and, do some things differently, you'll eventually find yourself in a space where you get, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not working for me. You get into that kind of space and doors close. So a part of our, yearly goals is, not only stepping out of the comfort zone, that's part of the DNA for me, but it's also assessing what risk will be like, or what risks I'm gonna have to take to make these goals happen, because that's also a part of it, right? So like, if we're setting our goals and then we visit them 6 months later and we have to assess, well, the market has changed, or, the competition has increased, or, whatever things are in our way, those are risks to the company. And so you have to then be able to, be flexible, malleable, and be able to move around those, to be able, I call it the mountain, you're going over, under, around, or through it. What are we doing? But we're not stopping. So we got to figure it out. And that's how we operate against risk.
Yeah, I think that similarly, this idea of if you're doing something one way, you're comfortable with doing it that way. There's this notion of like, oh, this is great. I like this. I can keep doing it this way, or this is good enough for me. Like this is all I need. This is all I'm looking for. And in theory, right, we would think, yeah, okay, you can just keep doing it that way and you can still maintain this level. But like you were saying, you fall behind, right? Like if you're not evolving, growing, taking those risks, unfortunately, the habits that you have right now, the way that the world works, you just get behind, right? It doesn't allow you to just stay on this, same level, just same playing field and same like process and same consistency, right? Yeah. The consistency, to maintain that consistency, you have to keep taking risks.
Yeah, consistency is great. Like you want to be consistent, but I think it's that other stuff you mentioned, like, being complacent in that consistency where you're just like, you've gotten a rhythm and you haven't looked up to see what else is going on, and you're in this rhythm, boy, you knocking it out. But eventually, things happen, and
Yeah.
you have to pull your head up, and you have to, figure out what your next levels are going to be, and reaching those goals, and stepping out there and doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm listening to it, and I guess I just ardently believe that if you're not willing to quote unquote take on risk, you don't know the game that you're in. You shouldn't have chosen entrepreneurship because it's actually a risk for you not to take risk as an entrepreneur, right? At the end of the day, like when I think about entrepreneurship, whether it's passion or whether it's a passion project for you, or let's be real, you just got some people who are purebred, they're about just going out there and earning that income, right? Not knocking either or, it is what it is. But as entrepreneurs, we're paid at the end of the day for a couple simple things, right? Those of us who succeed as entrepreneurs, we succeed because we solve other people's problems better than everyone else. That's what it boils down to. We're problem solvers, right? And that's where our consistency, that's where our value, that's where our longevity comes from. Our ability to anticipate or at least see problems before other people do, and then solve them more efficiently and effectively, right? And if you understand that, then you understand that people are always changing. Their problems are always changing. The issues they're dealing with are always changing, which means you have to be more informed tomorrow than you are today. And if you're not, you become irrelevant, right? And that's the game that you choose to play when you become an entrepreneur, right? When I think about risk and individuals' unwillingness to accept it, to me, it also smacks of entitlement. Like I'm entitled to the success I've enjoyed because of what I did yesterday. And for me, entrepreneurship is like sport. Like the team that won the championship, the Bucks, yesterday, they're not going to give them a trophy next year because they won this past year. They got to go out and earn it again, right?
That's good.
And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Like that's entitlement. When you feel like because you've done ABC for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that somehow you're entitled for continued success. They say with the stock market, past performance does not guarantee future results.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to think about entrepreneurship in much the same way. Like, Rochelle, you hit the nail on the head. Like I'm thinking of about 2 or 3 business owners right now. Love them to death. I do. I love them. I want to see them do well. But I remember having conversations with them before the pandemic saying, look, and being polite about it, but still kind of putting in perspective with them, like, I don't think you understand the game that you're in. Like, you can't earn enough to take steak and egg dates. You can't earn enough to take the vacation. That's not what entrepreneurship is. If you really get it, understand the game that you're playing, you're building an organism. You're building something that at some point you want it to operate almost completely and utterly independently of you. You want it to grow into a full human being. Like when a baby's born, it's helpless. It's completely at the whims of whatever else is going on around it, right? And the objective is to pour and invest in that child till it gets to a point where it can begin to kind of operate independently and protect itself and make the investments in itself and make decisions. Well, that's where you want your business to get to eventually.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you don't have a business. What you have is a self-employed venture that you're calling a business, right? You know, you have a business when the business begins to grow up and take on muscle and intellect and be able to kind of operate and shift and change and survive and make, and for me, that when I think about it, it's like like I said, it's like the person that expects the child to just grow and become more intelligent and grow and become more capable just because it's growing. No, if you don't invest in that child, if you don't make sure they are eating right, if you don't make sure that they have a regimen, if you don't make sure they're being educated, they're going to be a 16-year-old, 5-year-old. Right? And right now, I mean, I can say this amongst us. I wouldn't say it to someone's face. They probably punch me in the face and get upset. But the reality of the matter is a lot of people are 16-year-old, 5-year-olds in their business. And we know what happens when you turn 30 and you're still a 5-year-old. if you don't discipline yourself, the world will discipline you. And a discipline in entrepreneurship means you're out of business, right? I think about how to assess risk. For me, the question I ask myself is this going to buy back my time? If it's going to buy back my time, it's not a risk, it's an investment, right? So that's the prism through I look at everything. I look at my money like soldiers. I want to send my soldiers out into the field. And when they come back, I want them to have captured more soldiers. So if I spend my money on something that doesn't go out and bring back more soldiers or buy back more of my time so I can live the lifestyle that I want, then that's a risk. But if I spend my money on something that's going to capture more soldiers or create more time freedom for me, then that's an investment. And I don't see risk and investment in much the same. I don't see them as the same, right? And maybe that's because I'm an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs can be a little bit crazy, right? We define, we come up with our own definitions and ideals. But that's how I kind of assess risk in my life. Like, I'm willing to take the haircut now to have everything I want later, right? And what I want is time. What I want is a business that operates like clockwork, right? What I want to do is create something that attracts the talent and the people around whatever it is that I or the cadre is doing, so we can refine and level up, right? And spend our time growing the business and living lives of satisfaction, and then kind of helping other people do the same, right? Creating environments of success where other people can do the same.
I think that the idea of investments and risk can sometimes, though, bring up the same feelings, right? So that's why they can look similar, right? So for example, knowing that you need to set up your business the right way, knowing that you need like a CPA or lawyers or whatever to make sure your ducks are in a row, make sure things are taken care of, wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, be defined as a risk, right, per se, of doing those things. But I think they bring up, there's an investment, right? It's an investment of making sure that you're setting yourself up correctly. But I think that a big part of why sometimes people don't do those things is, well, A, they may not know, but then B, the fear around money, the fear around hearing something that they didn't, that might be, it's more of a mess than they realized, the fear around not being able to get themselves out of the mess, right? So it's bringing up a lot of the same feelings that a risk would be if they were going to then, maybe build a new website or a huge marketing plan or hire staff, right? In the same sort of like nervousness around that. So I think that risk or leveling up or going out of your comfort zone, like it can be pretty vast, right? Especially in entrepreneurship. And it can, and I just want to, bring that up with like people who are listening who might just think we're talking about big things, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the big things that feel risky to you. It might feel risky to you because you know that this thing needs to be taken care of, and you know that it's going to be a lot of work or problematic, or it's going to look messy, and you're scared around what needs to happen next. That in itself, I think, can bring up that same sort of like emotion that people get when they're ready to take a big risk, right, in their business to like move to that next level.
I think that's great. I think, you hit it nail on the head, as Juwan would say. Risk and fear, right, are live in the same space. And, becoming an entrepreneurship, I've talked to, many people who the fear just, gets in the way, of even getting the paperwork done, even talking to someone about their business, trying to make that first sale, that first dollar, even, trying to, running into roadblocks, getting your website done. Like, I don't know how to do this. And you try to hire somebody and they let you down. You try to hire somebody to get a logo and they let you down. You try to hire somebody to, you do all the things and you get let down. And, it kind of deters people from taking the risk, right? The fear of the unknown, or the fear of people not wanting to buy your service or your product,
Mhm.
if nobody, all of those things. And we hear them all the time, right? But without the risk, there's no reward. You have to step out and do it. Probably all of us have, maybe not you, Shelley, because you're in marketing, but all of us have problems with, web designers and creatives, and, getting into their thing, and they decide they're just not going to do it anymore, or they just don't show up, or they do it incorrectly, and you have to keep going, round robin. So, I'm just going to do my website myself. You do all those things, right? But you just can't stop. You have to back up and take another look at it, in a different kind of way, and then make a plan and move forward. And so I think risk and fear, along with being a entrepreneur and owning a small business, are all hand in hand. They're all friends and cousins, and, they don't live without the other.
I think that's also another good point that you kind of mentioned, of like taking a step back or looking more closely at it, is sometimes this risk also looks into, you scale back to grow, right? You scale,
Mm.
like, for example, I was just learning about this guy who had a restaurant and made tons of food. His food was amazing and whatever, but the restaurant was not doing well, but people always raved about his salsa. So he closed the restaurant, he just doubled down on salsa, and now he's huge, right? So sometimes it also looks like, yeah, it is pivoting, it's changing, but maybe it is smaller than what you initially thought it was going to have to be, right? Maybe it's just this one thing rather than all the things, right? I know that's something I struggle with as a marketer, which is a very big term and has a lot of things that can fall under there. It's like, sure, I get into this, I've gotten into phases of, I'm going to do all these things, right? But then you need to kind of take a risk of taking away some of those things, right? To scale up others that are going to be more effective.
Yeah. Scale up or scale down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that story about he heard and listened to those who were buying his salsa, and ding, 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 took a risk, because right now I have to like close down this dream thing and,
Right.
only focus on this salsa.
Mm-hmm.
But, he would have been out of business if he had not.
Yeah.
That's a huge risk there.
Yeah.
In deciding that you're not going to go left, you're going to go right.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with a business owner a couple of days ago, right? And in her case, it wasn't the business that needed to scale down, it was her. Right.
Please
and
explain.
yeah, and it's like, look, you're starving the baby because you're not living to build the business, you're living to afford your lifestyle. Right. You want to upgrade your vehicle every 2-3 years and drive around a Mercedes Benz because you like the way people look at you when you have it. Okay, I get it. Right. You need to buy some new clothes every 2 weeks. You need a vacation, take Instagram foodies taking 8 pics every 3 months. I mean, I get it, right?
It's a whole nother show.
Yeah. But I was like, but you're living and you're paying and you're investing in other people's opinions of it instead of investing in the business. You need to scale back. And you can get caught up in that trap, right? Where you look up and you're working, you're grinding, you're spending money and doing all these things. And a lot of it can be right. It can be for a reason, but you don't want to be building and working and grinding to pay bills, right? At the end of the day, this is about, at least as far as I'm concerned, this is about lifestyle, right? If I wanted to get up and run myself to the ground every single day and have multiple dictators that could care less about my welfare, that's called employment. Right. So, I think about that. The other thing I think about is like staying in your core values, your core focus, your core skill sets, right? If you stay in that core, you stay where your power is at, it's not risk, it's just you growing and expanding and scaling what it is you're doing. Where you run into trouble is, you start chasing the shiny objects. And you start doing things that you don't have the competency or the experience, or quite frankly, let's be real. Sometimes I've done this. I've chased things that I'm really, it made sense. That makes sense. I'm gonna go do it. And then I do it, and I look up 5-6 months from now, and I'm not excited about it at all. I'm like, why did I do that? Now I've created these expectations. I got these clients. I got all this stuff going on. I'm like, oh snap! How do I extricate myself from this situation? Right? It's because I didn't stay in my core. If you stay in your core focus, you stay in your core value, you stay in the thing that you know you've been quote unquote put on earth to do, you can't go wrong. Now you'll make some mistakes, you'll bump your head, but everything will be a growing experience, right? Versus where you just blow money and time. And you look up and it's like all for naught, right? I just invested my time and effort in this, and I'm not even going to be doing it. I think that's part of what individuals have to do to kind of assess risk. Right now, there's a difference between assessing risk and spending money on something that may mean you can't keep your electricity on next week. We ain't talking about that, right? That's a different discussion altogether, right? But we're just talking about when you're in a position where you're worried about, usually if you're concerned about losing something, right? When we talk about risk, you're concerned about taking an L. Some L's you need to take, some L's you need to be willing to take. There's some things you need to cut so you can be more effective, as Shelley alluded to. That's kind of like how I think about it. And at least that's what I see most frequently with a lot of the business owners that I work with. It's like they've built these images and these personas, and they've lost track of the fact that you didn't get into business to build this persona. You got in business so you don't have to wake up and grind anymore. So you can spend more time with your family, so you can give back more to that organization, so you can spend more time pursuing your passions. You didn't build this to create another job for yourself.
I think it's all in why you built it. I
Yeah.
think people have different ideas on why they build business. And, some could be, it's just a side hustle for spending money. Some could be, it is a sole entrepreneurship endeavor where they replaced a job with freelancing, or, I think all of those, it depends on why you built your business and what you want to accomplish with it. I think there are levels to it. Some people are like you, Juwan, it's all about, retiring or not retiring, but, creating the type of lifestyle that you want, so that you're making money while you're sleeping, and it's, going into your funds, and you get to afford the lifestyle that you want. You mentioned that a lot, but I know a lot of people that just, they're business owners, but they have different ideas about what they want to do with it. And I think all of that is okay. It just kind of depends on what are your goals and what are your accomplishments, and are you making them? Is this what you are really, is this really what you want out of business? I know startup guys who are just, guys and girls who just start up companies for the thrill of it. They don't necessarily are looking into making $1 million or, getting Series A or whatever. They just like the creativeness of getting into business for the first project. And then they get freelance somewhere else. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's so many different levels. I just want everybody to understand that, you have to decide what's best for you based on your goals for your company, whatever that is, at all different levels. And so, and then, assess whatever risk you need to take in order to grow that said company, and even the smallest side hustle business, you have to look at that as hamster on the wheel. You still can't be the same day after day after day after day if you expect to still be able to make money in that business.
Right.
So you have to look at that in all different types of levels of risk in your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, today's episode is short and sweet, but hopefully it gets you thinking about risks you might be avoiding, risks that you might need to take, or just reflecting on, I think it's also important to reflect on some of the risks that you've taken to get you to where you are at now, right? And congratulate yourself for doing that, because it is hard.
Yes.
We're going to continue this conversation inside the NextOppSocial After Show group on Facebook. We invite everyone watching to join us there. The link is in our description here on YouTube, or go to our NextOppSocial page on Facebook, click community, and we'll be happy to have you inside. Don't forget to make sure to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, or visit our website at nextoppsocial.com to learn more about everything we do. And if you love today's episode, we encourage you to share it with someone else who can gain value from this as well. We will talk to you soon.
Bye.